Hello, Miss Steele here. So this week we are talking about texture. So for this project, we're going to use real texture to create implied texture with texture rubbings. So you want a white piece of paper. I have a colored piece of paper to add some details to my flower at the end. Scissors, glue, pencil eraser, and then crowns definitely work best for texture rubbing. So I have crowns. And then I have texture sheets in my classroom, but you don't have these. So instead of using these, I looked around my room and I tried to find at least 4 different textures. So what I found was some cardboard that I can use for my texture rubbing, a bag of potato chips that I'm going to try to use for my texture rubbing, some coins I can use for a texture rubbing, and I found some popsicle sticks. So I can use all of these, and I'm going to use this paper as my texture rubbing paper. And then I'm going to cut it up so I can create a flower out of it. I'm going to turn the brightness down a little bit so you can see better. I'm going to move all of these out of the way. And I'm going to start with my coins. So what you want to do is go around your house or wherever you're at and see if you can find things with different textures. You could even go outside to get different textures. That's a really good idea. Pavement, walls, wood grain. You want to pick colors that you like. That's kind of up to you. I think I'm going to do blues and purples and pinks for mine. So I have my coins underneath here. These have real texture, and we're going to create implied texture by coloring on top of them, like that. And so I'm going to keep moving this around, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in different textures on different parts of this paper, and then I'm going to cut it out to make my flower. So I want to get it completely covered with these different textures. So I'm going to keep going with my coins, and I'm going to get a slice of coins and then a slice of each of my texture rubbings. So I'm going to finish up with my coins, and then we'll move on to our next one. Okay, so I moved my coins around and I got my top one done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my next thing, and I'm going to be using a popsicle sticks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them out and then put my paper on top and do the same thing and follow that same step of coloring on top of them. I said I was going to do blues and purples and pinks, so I'm going to switch to a different blue for this one. And I'm going to follow that same step of coloring on top of these to get my next texture rubbing. So I'm going to do my next texture rubbing using those popsicle sticks. I might even change the direction that they're in too. If I lay them flat, it's easier to use them. So I'm going to keep going with this next texture rubbing, and then we'll move on to our next one. Got my popsicles done. Now I'm going to use this cardboard, and I think this texture underneath is a little more interesting, so I am going to tear it apart so I can get to that underneath side that I think is more interesting. So I'm going to pull this off so I can get some of this instead. And then I'm going to follow the same step, and I'm going to put this behind, and then I'm going to color on top to get my next texture. And I'm trying 4 different textures. I think I'm going to do purple for this one. And I'm going to color on top of it so I can use that actual texture to create implied texture. So even though my paper is flat, it looks like it has all these different textures on top. So I'm going to keep going with this, and then we will move on to our next one. So I'm going to make my last texture rubbing, and I found a bag of potato chips, believe it or not, and I'm going to try it. I've never tried it before, but I'm going to see if it creates some texture on here for me using all of these crumpled up potato chips. I might even crumple them up some more, but again, I'm coloring on top of it so I can get that texture on here. So I'm going to keep going with this, and then we'll move on to our next step. I have all of my texture rubbings done, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this up into a bunch of petals for a flower. So what I can do is I can flip it over and I can draw whatever shape I want for my petal. Maybe I want it to be shaped like a teardrop. And for that, I could make a U and then a V. You could make your flower petals just round if you wanted. You could make your flower petals shaped like a lemon if you wanted. You could make them kind of rounded like this, but you could make them even have some like design on the end. So that's kind of up to you. But what you want to do is you want to cut out a bunch of petals from this beautiful texture rubbing that we have to make a flower. I think I'm going to go with this shape. And so I can cut it out and they're all the same shape. I'm going to show you a trick. I'm going to cut this in half just so it's easier. And then I'm going to fold it and then fold it and then maybe fold it this way. And then once I cut out of it, because I have it all folded, it's going to cut the same shape for each of them. Like that. And so now they're all the same shape. So I'm going to get the rest of my petals cut out and then we're going to start putting our flowers together. I have all of my petals cut out, and if you remember, I had this colored piece of paper and I'm going to make this the inside of my flower. You can make it just a circle if you wanted to. Oop, it's kind of hard to see that. Just a circle if you wanted to, but I think I'm going to make mine a little more interesting. And I'm going to make it like a bumpy circle, kind of like this. So I'm going to cut this out, and then this will be the middle of my flower, and it'll also give me places to glue my petals onto. So I'm cutting out a bumpy circle for the inside of my flower. Like that. I might come in and make this bump a little more defined. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking my petals and putting them around this, because we did all of those texture rubbings with our petals, and now we can start adding it around here. So using my glue, adding a dot. I'm going to turn the brightness down a little bit. Maybe it'll make it easier for you to see. Adding a dot and then squishing it behind here. And I can keep doing that with all of them. So I'm going to add some glue to this back side so I can start adding in some more petals. You can put them close together. You can put them far apart if you'd like to. That's kind of up to you. You could change the shape of your petals, the colors that you use. I think I'm going to do all of my lighter ones on the inside and then my darker ones on the outside. I can scoot them a little bit closer together to fit them in. Right here, and then here is our last one. So if I flip it around, you'll see that my flower is coming together. If I can flip it around, it's all getting stuck. Give me 1 second. Right, I got it unstuck. And here's my flower with those texture rubbings that I'm starting. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my blue and come in behind here and add more to it. So 1, 2, we'll see if I have enough. 3, 4. Yep, I'm going to use these blues to go around here, and then we will look at it whenever it's all finished. And just like that, my texture rubbing flower is done. I cut out all my petals after I did all my texture rubbings. I use my colored paper as a base to glue onto. And my beautiful flower is done. I can go back and add details in the center of this if I wanted to, maybe add some more texture to it. But for right now, I'm going to consider this complete. I can't wait to see how yours come out. These always come out so different and I love them. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, your evening, your afternoon, whenever you're watching this. I'll see you next time. Bye.